According to Indonesia Ministry of Health, coronavirus are a large family of viruses that cause disease in humans and animals. In humans, it usually causes respiratory infection, from the common cold to serious illness, such as MERS and SARS. A new type of coronavirus that was discovered in humans since the outbreak occurred in Wuhan, China in December 2019 was later named as a SARS-CoV-2 and causes coronavirus disease, COVID-19. The coronavirus can cause minor disorder of the respiratory system, severe lung infection, and death. It is recognized by the international community that China has made remarkable progress in responding effectively to the outbreak. What made China address the epidemic faster is the ability to finance and mobilize resources, combined with a strong governance structure, efficient execution, and solidarity of the whole society. It just took 1 month for China to recognize the existence of novel coronavirus after the first case was reported, followed with the serious mandatory action in both Wuhan and all over China. After recognizing it as an emergency epidemic on January 22, 2020, strong measures have been adopted immediately by Wuhan local authorities to characterize and control the epidemic, including isolation of suspected cases for treatment, close monitoring of contacts, epidemiological and clinical data collection from patients, and development of diagnostic and treatment procedures. More and more hospitals have been designed by the government to treat infected patients. In the meantime, patients with different grievances are being treated in different hospitals. Thousands of medical professionals nationwide came to Wuhan and other cities in Hubei province for assistance. Many kinds of guidelines have been developed, and useful information about the risk factors and preventive measures are recommended to the public by various means. It is found that the COVID-19 can be transmitted through droplets, contact, and aerosol. Wuhan has implemented close management of communities. Inhabitants are not allowed to go out of their communities, and they are very supportive to these regulations. In the United States, the Trump administration's $10.8 billion Operation Warp Speed accelerated vaccine R&D faster than many researchers thought possible, specifically for the U.S. population. But an equally massive effort has unfolded in China. CanSino, Sinopharm, Sinovac are investing substantial resources testing for vaccine candidates in tens of thousands of volunteers around the world. The first people in the world to receive a COVID-19 vaccine were not part of a clinical trial. No TV station or newspaper covered the historic event. No company issued a statement. On 29 February, less than 2 months after the world awakened to the threat of the new disease, virologist Chen Wei, a major general in China's army, and 6 military scientists on her team stood in front of a Chinese Communist Party flag and received injection of an experimental COVID-19 vaccine. But the low profile of those historic first injections, the military collaboration with a private company, and the ethically fraught decision to start with vaccination outside of a clinical trial telegraphed that aside from the similar scale and speed, China's vaccine effort is following a very different course from those in the United States and Europe. Most leading Western vaccines rely on sexy technologies such as genetically engineered viral vectors, designer proteins, and snippets of RNA. 3 of China's leading vaccine candidates use an unfashionable stalwart. The whole inactivated virus is an approach that back to the first successful flu vaccine in the 1930s. And China's vaccine effort is cursed by the country's dramatic success with aggressive public health measures to stop the spread of the virus, SARS-CoV-2, including forced isolation of cases and testing of entire cities, whereas the raging pandemic in the United States has enabled trials there to quickly deliver signal of efficacy. So China's vaccine developers have gone abroad. Although the United States has shut them out of Operation Warp Speed, they have brokered deals with 14 other countries on 5 continents. They have mounted massive trials in the Arab world and given candidate vaccine to the top government officials there, and navigated toxic politics in Brazil, where the pandemic is raging fiercely, to test a vaccine and explore producing it there.
So, China's vaccine diplomacy is strategic accession to global power. Let's take a look at how COVID-19 vaccine diplomacy may pan out in the midst of the current pandemic. China is among the earliest in the development and testing of vaccines. It has 4 vaccines in the third phase of clinical trials and has set strategies for global supply in motion. Capitalizing in their strategic interests in their multilateral and bilateral relations, China has adopted several diplomacy channels for vaccine distributions. Drawing from our framework on science and technology diplomacy, it has deployed a mix of financial or economic support, geographical coverage, cultural outreach, information dissemination, material distribution, timing, and transportation strategies. It has varied the mix of channels based on its relationship with the partnering country. It has sought to set up an exchange, cooperate, collaborate, or make a commercial transaction. China timid its diplomacy to provide early vaccine access to countries of strategic interest. Philippines, Myanmar, Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos are some of the countries that could potentially have priority early access to China's vaccine. Each of the countries has a unique relationship with China, and the objective of vaccine diplomacy is distinct for each. Today, many geopolitical issues have been set aside due to the impact of COVID-19, and Indonesia did just that due to the economic condition which prompted them to accept China's vaccine offer. A successful vaccine will only strengthen the already existing relationship. An effective and successful vaccine will be beyond measure in terms of its diplomatic value to China, but its ineffectiveness could damage China's power and put a risk to its established relationship. In general, if a country's vaccine's ineffectiveness is discovered due to its low cost, low quality, and quick development, the diplomatic favors can quickly turn into backlash. One of the biggest concerns for any country will be the quality and effectiveness of the supply chain for successful administration of the vaccine. The success of the supply chain will not only depend on the quality development, testing, availability, transportation, demand, and administration of it at the lowest level, but also on the management and monitoring, cold chain management, and immunization safety. The management and monitoring will depend on the demand and production of the appropriate quantity and inventory. Cold chain management will be the most crucial in terms of having the right facility location, routing, and mass distribution, all of which needs a supply chain designed with rigorous temperature control resources. It will require monitoring storage temperatures, other conditions appropriate to the requirements, and conducting first-level maintenance of cold chain equipment. Last, immunization safety measures and resources must be available for the frontline workers, and safe waste disposable must be employed. For others, promises of vaccines doses have been connected with pressure to agree to specific foreign policy objectives, echoing the string often attached to China's heavy-handed quote-unquote mass diplomacy earlier in the pandemic. China currently has 5 coronavirus vaccines developed by 4 companies. All 5 vaccines have reached phase 3 clinical trials in at least 16 countries. Phase 3 is the final test for a vaccine before it is judged to be safe for mass distribution. The companies developing the Chinese vaccines are both state-owned public companies and private companies working collaboratively with companies around the world. Their collective goal is to guarantee large-scale production of vaccines at affordable price, along with technology that will enable local production. Power of vaccine and vaccine science diplomacy has been underexplored, despite a noble track record that included promoting peace between the Cold War powers of the 1950s and 1960s, which also led to the development, testing, and delivery of 2 of the most important 20th century health interventions. The historical lessons from these accomplishments still have critical relevance to global health and blue marble health.